My name is Gavin Evans, and this is my review of The Last of Us Part 2. And this review will have spoilers, so there's your warning. And I should give you a heads up that this is going to be a very long video. So throughout it, my shot might change, my hair will change. My camera is a piece of shit. It dies after like 25 minutes and I only have one battery, so it's going to take a long time, but this video will be worth it. Last of Us Part 2 is the greatest piece of media ever. I think it is better than every other video game. I think it's better than every movie that has ever been made. I think it's better than every TV show that has ever been made. Like, to me, this is the peak of art. And nothing is going to change that. I know that this is the best story I will ever experience. Last of Us Part 3 might come close, but it will not surpass this one. So before I go into my review, I do want to talk about my expectations regarding this game. Because I loved the first game. But when they announced a sequel, I'll be honest, I didn't care. To me, that first game was perfect. It had a perfect ending. I didn't need any more. So I remember seeing the teaser where Ghost Joel visits Ellie. I remember the gameplay footage where it's the dance and then Ellie fighting the Seraphites. But I just didn't care. However, was it May 2020 or June 2020? Okay, the reviews for this game started to come out and they were so positive. Everybody was calling this game a masterpiece. People were calling it the best game ever. But the review that I really remembered is one person said that this game is like if Schindler's List was a game. And I don't know why, but that got me really excited. I'm like, oh man, maybe I was wrong. And at that time, I only had a PlayStation 3, so I bought a PS4 just for this game. I bought this game. And, well, I should also say that there was a little bit that got spoiled for me. Like back then, I wasn't really online as much as I am now. So I knew some of it got leaked, but I didn't read into it. The only thing that was spoiled for me is that Joel's dies. And I didn't care. Like I didn't. I was just like, well, duh. Obviously, Joe was going to die. He probably sacrifices himself at the end of this game to protect Ellie. So okay, whatever. So I'm playing this game. Do. Okay, who's this girl? Whatever. And then Joe died. And I couldn't believe he died at the very beginning. I was just heartbroken. I remember I took a picture of the game and I was like only 3 hours into The Last of Us Part 2 and my heart's already broken. And yeah, I was just locked in. And I was loving it throughout. But then eventually I did start to find it a little tedious. Like, okay, Ellie's on this revenge quest. I do need a bit more here. And then we get the moment where the game cuts to black and you start playing as Abby. and I was furious. I don't want to play as her. She killed Joel. I want her to die. I don't want to understand her. I don't. I just want to hate her blindly. But eventually I was won over by her as a character. I did start to understand her, and I was rooting for her redemption, and eventually it just clicked for me, and I realized I was playing the greatest game ever made. And it kept going and going and going. And I remember that week, I just wouldn't shut up about this game. I was talking about it all the time. It's all that was on my mind. And then we get to the end, and I bawled my eyes out. Honestly, I think for hours. I thought this game was so powerful. And what did I do? Well, I immediately played it again, which I have never done before. And then like a month later, I played it 2 more times again. Like I've played this game so many times. But back in 2020, not to say too much, but 2020 was a very shitty year for me. I was at rock bottom. I was so depressed and lonely and broken and hopeless. And I know this sounds really silly because this is a very depressing game, but this game did a lot to lift my spirits up. It actually made me understand life and the human condition more. And in some ways, I'll talk more about it later on, but I do try to apply the philosophy of this game into my everyday life as much as possible, which I know sounds crazy, but this game just had an enormous effect on me. So, what we're going to do here is first we're going to talk about the story, then the characters, then the themes. It's going to be a long video. Please stick through it because this is the review I'm most passionate about. This is the game, the story I'm most passionate about. So, let's begin by talking about the prologue, and I love the prologue here. Just that opening shot of Joe cleaning his guitar, immediately becoming clear that this game was peak in terms of its graphics, just like that. And I love how Joel is telling Tommy the story of what happened. And he tells him how Ellie needed her immunity to mean something. He understands her thought process and he understands what he did. But he still always describes it as him saving her. And you can just feel the weight that Tommy is feeling. I believe his exact words are, "That's a lot." And I love how when Tommy asks him, "Did Ellie believe you?" Joe replies, "She didn't say otherwise." Which means he knows she doesn't, but she didn't say otherwise. And then you get to play as Joel one last time as the sun is setting. And it's just a beautiful way to begin the game. The warm, sunny atmosphere, Gustavo's beautiful score, and you get back to the stable, and Tommy is just like, "I don't know if I would have done any different. I'll take it to my grave if I have to." And that moment just really cements Tommy's and Joel's bond for the rest of Joel's life. And then Joel goes to see Ellie, and Ellie is listening to Through the Valley by Sean James, a great song. And I like how it kind of feels like the ending of the first game. Ellie knows Joel is lying, she's keeping it to herself, she's kind of keeping herself at a distance, Joel is trying to win her over, so it's just really awkward to watch. But then eventually, he um, kind of wins the over. They just keep talking and he keeps fumbling, but then he brings out the guitar and he sings for her just like he said he would. Actually, he didn't say he would. She wanted him to. And, I'll talk more about the music later on, but this piece of music brings so much emotion to this game. And just watching Joe sing and Ellie actually being captivated. Joe gives her the guitar. It's like a part of him. He says he'll teach her. And you can tell that Ellie has been won over. Even on the way out, she asks Joe if he remembers that joke, and he's like, "What is the downside of eating a clock? It's time consuming." That's so dumb. Just a perfect progression of their relationship in just a few minutes. But then you get the guitar strings and Last of Us Part 2. It sounds haunting. It sounds like something bad is about to happen. And we get 4 years later, and Ellie is much older. We get introduced to Jesse just like that. And, if you look around Ellie's place, you can see Sam's warbot. She grabs her knife. She still feels like Ellie. And she's catching Jesse up on some events that happened the night before about Dina kissing her, and then Ellie yelling at Joel, and then Maria wants Seth to apologize to Ellie. There's all this tension. Things do seem a bit messy, but I like how you get to explore Jackson. You get to see the dogs there. You get to explore the town and the people. You throw the snowballs at the kids. You learn how the patrols work. And then everybody heads out. And the music here, once again, you can just tell something bad is about to happen. Everybody goes off in their different directions. And it feels heavy. We then cut to Abby waking up, and at first you're like, okay, who is this girl? Who are these people? Like, you don't have a clue. And they're after someone, and you start to suspect it might be Joel. Are these fireflies? Are they not? Someone's pregnant. You don't really care about any of this stuff on a first playthrough. And traverse Abby. Then you cut back to Ellie, and she's with Dina, and Dina says that things are over between her and Jesse. Ellie says she's not interested in Kat anymore, and they just spend this time bonding. They, go on their patrols. They talk about Eugene and how Eugene and Tommy used to be fireflies, and you kind of think at first, is Ellie going to find out about Joe here? No? You encounter some clickles, just good relationship bonding here. And then cuts back to Abby. She's in danger. Joel and Tommy rescue her. She says she's got a good place for them. She takes them back to the lodge. Well, Tommy is friendly. Hey, if you got some stuff, we'll give it to you and get back on your way. He goes like, I'm Tommy, and I'm Joel. And everybody goes quiet. And I'll never forget the first time I experienced this scene. Well, all of a sudden, Joel's legs are shotgunned off pretty much. Tommy gets beaten unconscious. And Abby is furious. Joel obviously did her dirty, and she wants revenge. And just you feel the emotion here. Like, Joel is supposed to be this invincible guy, but here he gets taken out, and okay, well, at first you think somebody has to rescue him, right? Cuts back to Ellie and Dina, and they're smoking weed. They're bonding. Ellie tells Dina about her immunity, but Dina doesn't believe her. And Jesse shows up, and he goes downstairs, and he's like, "What are you guys doing? The town is counting on you. Joe and Tommy didn't show up at their location." And Ellie, like, immediately snaps back into it. And once again, this game is so brilliant at making you feel like something bad is about to happen. And then Ellie finds the lodge where they're at, and she runs downstairs. She gets beaten up. She sees Joe lying on the ground, and he's not looking good. His face is like messed up. He is bloody. He is beaten. And Ellie's just yelling, "Joel, fucking get up. Please, fucking get up. Joel." And just the way she sounds as she screams out to Joel, and Owen tells Abby, "Finish it now." And the first time you're like, okay, somebody has to come in and shoot them dead, and Joe can't die here, right? No, she takes that final swing, and Joe is gone. And Ellie screams here, "Oh, haunting, I'm gonna fucking kill you. I'm gonna fucking kill you." She's just so broken and angry and devastated, and you really feel the weight. And then Manny spits on Joel, and your thought process is, I'm going to torture and kill every one of these fuckers. I hate them. And then Ellie gets knocked out, and Dina wakes up, and she's like, "Ellie, I'm sorry." And Joel's dead body is there. It wasn't a dream. It really happened. Joy's dead. And that next shot of Ellie sitting in her place, the look on her face, like, you can tell that she hasn't slept. That she's truly broken up about this. And her and Tommy talk. They find out they're from Seattle. And Ellie wants to go on revenge quest. Tommy isn't sure. Ellie's like, "If this was me or you, Tom, Joe would be halfway to Seattle already." "No, he wouldn't." "Yes, he fucking would." Odd. Well, we don't know how many people they got. What are you doing? And there's this tension, and Tommy convinces Ellie to wait a day. And they just share this hug, and this is such a beautiful moment because they hug, and it's like they're family. Tommy is Ellie's family. And then the camera lowers down, and we see Joe's gravestone. Joe Miller. He's in the ground. He is dead. It's like, I know we saw him die, but like, you still don't really realize it until you see the grave. And Ellie and Dina go to Joel's place, and you walk around, and this is kind of like the funeral for Joel, where you get a time to remember him, to look at the memories you had. And one of my favorite scenes here is when Ellie finds Joel's jacket and she sniffs it. Like, sometimes there's just a smell that reminds you of someone. You smell it, and it's like you're there with them. It feels so real. And Maria comes to the house, and she lets Ellie and Dina go, and that they have to bring back her dumbass husband. And then it cuts to Seattle day one. And Seattle day one is very slow at first, but I'm okay with it. It wouldn't be realistic if they got there and there's all these people, they get information like that. I'm okay with the slow pace here because it feels real. And during this time, they really focus on progressing Dina's and Ellie's relationship. And I like how, they talk about their dreams. Dina wants to be at a farmhouse. Ellie is obsessed with space. Ellie sings Take On Me for Dina, which is a very beautiful moment. Dina kind of finds out just how much of a monster Tommy can be. And then eventually you get that explosion that kills Schimmel. And now things have escalated. Ellie is captured and taken to the school. Dina can't be found. I love this moment. It feels so intense. Jordan's got the upper hand. He comes across like a punk and you just want him to suffer. And then Dina protects Ellie, and then Jordan shoots the glass Dina is on. She falls down. He's like choking her out. So Ellie's trying to grab a piece of glass, and she's trying. Is she going to grab one? What's going on here? What's going to happen? Who's going to die? Ellie grabs a piece of glass, cuts the rope, stabs Jordan in the neck, and he starts bleeding out. Soon, more people come in, and I'll talk more about the gameplay later on, but it's lots of fun. You make your way throughout Seattle, eventually to Leah at the radio station. Well, she was already killed by some people. Let's just say that for now. They escape. And actually, I do like how they build up the Sarah fights here. Like, you've got the moles, you've got the aftermath at the radio station, TV station. Hold on, which one? Leah is at TV station, Last of Us 2. TV station, not radio. Okay. And anyways, you find out more about the wolves as well and how they operate. And then Ellie's mask gets damaged. Dina wants to save Ellie. Ellie's like, Dina, don't, stop, I'm immune, see? And Dina's taken back. Wait, what? And she's injured and Ellie helps her get to a theater. Well, Ellie's like, I told you, Tommy, Maria, Joe are the only ones who knew. And then Dina drops the bomb that she is pregnant. And on a replay, it is actually really obvious if you read Ellie's journal, if you realize that Dina is puking throughout. And now Ellie's just pissed. Well, like, we could have turned back. Now you're just holding me back. Well, Dina's like, well, I didn't want to be a burden. Well, you're a burden now. Yeah, not the best thing to say. So they get some space from each other, and Ellie walks around the theater. You see some guy who electrocuted himself on the rooftop, and Ellie takes out the guitar. And at this point, lots of time has passed between the opening and now. So when you hear the do 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 do, it breaks your heart. It reminds you of Joe. It reminds you what is motivating Ellie on this quest. And we get this beautiful flashback of Joe taking Ellie to the museum for her birthday. And we see that he taught her how to swim. We see just how well he knows her. And there's so many great jokes here. I'm on a motherfucking dinosaur! Oh, Wing Wing? Oh, it's for a dinosaur? Joe, it's for you. Oh, wow, that one dinosaur is really thick-scarred. Kind of reminds me of Tommy. So many great jokes are present here. And then Joe gives Ellie the space takeoff audio. And Ellie closes her eyes, and it's just pure magic. Did I do alright? Are you fucking kidding me? They really did love each other. And then Ellie's led into the other building, and there's a firefly symbol labeled Liars. And just like that, it kills the mood. We then get Saturday 2, where Ellie wakes up. Dina is puking, but she's been paying attention to the wolf radio, and she's kind of figured out their locations. And they hear about an intruder over in Hillcrest, so we kind of get to see how resourceful and smart Dina can be. And Ellie goes to look for Tommy, because she thinks the imposter is Tommy, but nope, it's Jesse. And I know people are upset about the trailer misleading you here. I don't know, I think it's a non-issue, but whatever. That might be a video for a different day, talking about some of the criticisms. But I think the scene where Ellie and Jesse are in the vehicle driving away is so exciting and intense. And then we get back to the theater, and Dina is so happy to see Jesse. And I like how Ellie doesn't join them. She cares about them, but Joel and Tommy, that's whole group. So then we get another flashback where Tommy teaches Ellie how to snipe, and this is great foreshadowing. And then Ellie and Joel decide to get guitar strings, and I like how they're in the area that Joel and Tommy and Abby were at the beginning of the game. And anyways, while Ellie and Joel head to the music shop, Joel talks about how he's been reading Starlight Savage books, and he's really trying to put in an effort. They go through the hotel, they fight a bloater, and I love how Joel is like, oh, if you fuck with Ellie, I'm going to fucking destroy you. And then they find these two people who left Jackson because there's just so much suffering out in the world. And Ellie brings up the whole hospital debate again. Why'd you take me out when I was still passed out? Maybe they could have ran some more tests. Because I saw what the test did, and when I realized it was nothing, I got us the hell out. Look, there was no cure. I know you wish things were different. I wish things were different, but they ain't. And you just see how it's eating at Ellie and how Joel's kind of lying to her. But the good lies when she's like, how do you know? Have you met anyone else who's immune? They could be hiding it. You do. It's actually really well written though. But then Ellie goes to the hospital to find Noah. She encounters Seraphites for the first time. She gets to the hospital. Whitney's death is actually so brutal. But she finds Noah soon. And Noah is just like, do his screams keep you up? Yeah, that little bitch got what he deserved. And she just pisses you off. Super exciting chase scene. You then take her into the lower section, which is filled with spores. So Noah is dying. And this is one of the big moments. Because soon Noah's like, you're breathing spores. You're whole. So you think Ellie's going to find out here. You realize Noah is a Firefly confirmed. But it seems like Ellie already knows. And then she beats Noah to death with this crowbar in order to get information. And you can just see how far Ellie is falling. Ellie gets back to the theater and her hand is shaking. She's covered in blood. She's miserable. She's shaken up. She's destroying herself. And I love that scene when Dina takes off her shirt and she's covered in bruises. She just feels so weak and so defeated. And Ellie's in shock. I made her talk. She's disgusted, afraid of herself. And then we get the flashback where it turns out that Ellie did find out about Joel, if you tell me the truth, I'll go back to Jackson no matter what it is. But if you lie, you'll never see me again. Just say it. Making a vaccine would have killed you. So I stopped them. I love how Joel is a man of few words, and you can always tell his perspective by what he says. But, like, I don't know. I feel like the way the characters talk feels honest to their characters. And Ellie is broken up about this. She breaks down into tears. This is a devastating moment. Well, Joel goes to comfort her and she's like, "No! Get your hands away from me. I'll go back. But we're done." And now you realize, oh, so Ellie pushed Joel away for the last few years of his life. And it truly is just heartbreaking. We then get day 3, and Ellie wakes up behind the theater, a bit of foreshadowing of a future boss fight. And Jesse talks to Ellie about Dina's sickness, and he asks, "Is she pregnant?" Ellie says, "Yeah." And Jesse's just like, "Look, I understand why you're here, but we need to go back." And Ellie's pretty much like, "I understand, but I can't leave Tommy here. He's here because of me." So Jesse's just like, "Fuck it, I'll go with you." And I kind of like how at first, like in day 2, she is concerned about Tommy. But in day 3, she starts to use Tommy as a way to manipulate Dina and Jesse. So Jesse and Ellie travel together for a bit. There was some great dialogue here about revenge and what if they come back after us. And they, like you can just really feel the friendship between these two characters. Jesse's got an attitude, but he does kill. And then they hear about a sniper, and Jesse's like, "That's Tommy, we gotta go." And Ellie's like, "Look, I don't care, by the time we'll get there, he'll be gone, so we might as well just meet him at the aquarium." And Jesse's just like, well, Ellie's like, "If you do this, man, I'm not coming after you." And Jesse's like, "I hope you get there or get her." And they go their separate ways, and Ellie is killing a bunch of wolves, a bunch of Seraphites to get to the aquarium where Abby is. She gets there, she's running around trying to find her. She gets attacked by a dog, maybe Alice. She kills Alice. Really brutal moment, actually. But then she finds Owen and Mel, and they're arguing about something. Abby is on an island? What? What's going on there? And Ellie barges in, and she holds a gun to them. And Owen recognizes her as the girl from Jackson. And Ellie tries to get them to reveal information the way Joe did, but things go wrong. Ellie ends up shooting Owen, and Mel tries to attack Ellie. She grabs the knife and stabs Mel in the neck. As Owen's dying on the ground, he's like, "Pregnant." And, the game did tell you early on that Mel was pregnant. And then Ellie sees her belly, and she just starts breaking down, having a complete breakdown. Like, she just killed a baby. She's devastated. And then she hears Joel. Wait, what? Oh, it's Tommy. Tommy is there to save her. And it's kind of like the winter section from part 1, because Joel didn't save Ellie physically, but emotionally he did. Just like Tommy here. So they go back to the theater. Ellie is still shaken up, but she makes up with Jesse. She's good with Tommy. She's good to go back without killing Abby. but then Abby comes to the theater, she attacks Tommy, and just like that, Jesse gets shot. And like, you feel the stakes, like, holy shit, I can't believe that just happened. Wait, what? What's going on here? And then, I know why you killed Joel. He did what he did because of me. I'm the one that you want. We let you live, and you wasted it. And then it cuts to black. It cuts to black, and everybody remembers when it cuts to black. Because then you start playing as Abby, and I was so pissed the first time. I don't want to see her story. I don't want to understand her. Honestly, this moment here is an all-timer moment. It's so good and it's so iconic. But I like how when we see Abby here, it's not the Abby we have come to know through Ellie's point of view. She's younger, she's smaller, she just seems more innocent. And this section does a great job at humanizing her. We spend some time with Abby and her dad. They save an animal. They feel like just normal people to a certain degree. And I like how we then get the point of view of before Marlene told Joel about what was happening. Like, it's nice to see a different point of view of this decision. And Abby comes in, she tells her dad, if it was me, I would want you to go ahead with it. And I like how Jerry kind of just has this look to him. Well, he knows if it was Abby, he wouldn't be able to do it. And then Abby goes down that long hallway. She opens the door. She opens the other door. And her dad's dead body is there. And this scene is just heartbreaking. It really does feel like this girl just lost her entire world. And we then cut to Abby after she murdered Joel. And I like how you can just tell that this did nothing to make her feel better. And I like how we can hear the conversations had in the background between Jordan and Owen. Like, it's nice to get a different point of view of this moment. And, like, you still hate her here, but you understand her. So, we then cut to Seattle Day 1. And the first time I played this game, I was just like, wait, what? No. Okay, like, I understand her. I don't need to play as her now. Like, are we going to go through day 1, day 2, day 3 as Abby as well? No, I was very reluctant to go ahead, but I did it anyways. And I like how just like that, you can see that Abby still can't sleep. Killing Joel did nothing to make her feel better. And I like getting a different perspective of the wolves. Abby is walking around, she's talking to people, everyone and everything just feels so normal. You see the gym in the stadium, you see the school, you see the cafeteria. You just get another sense of how things work here. And I like how there's conversations about how Mel hasn't been the same since Jackson. Manny is a slut who sleeps around. Owen is taking on extra assignments. Everybody is overworking themselves, or everybody is keeping themselves busy. Everybody is trying to stay distracted. And Mel, Manny, and Abby are in a truck. They're heading to a location. They get attacked by Seraphites. They get stuck at this location. And this stuff is to focus on having some conversations about the wolves and the Seraphites. It's to focus on the friendship between Mel and Abby. This section exists so we can understand these characters more. And they then get rescued by the wolves. They go back to the farm. Well, Abby goes to check on Mel, and Noah tells Abby and Owen about Danny getting killed and how Owen's missing and how they're supposed to keep this on the DL. So now you have a bunch of questions. You go inside the building and it's awful here. I'll talk more about Isaac later on, but people are getting tortured and it's so mean. It really is. Isaac, Manny, and Abby go upstairs. Isaac tells them he's got a big idea for an attack during the big storm in a couple of days. And Abby then asks about Owen, and he's like, who spilled the beans? Was it Noah? Salt Lake crew. Isaac then tells Abby that Danny used his last words to tell Isaac that Owen shot him, and Abby immediately jumped to Owen's defense. She wants to understand his point of view. Very important in this story. So we then get a flashback between Abby and Owen 3 years ago? A long time ago. Right after Joel's attack, the Fireflies disbanded and they moved to different parts, and the wolves took Abby and Owen and the rest in. So here we've got a moment of Owen having fun, laughing, enjoying himself, and Abby just wants to get back to the base. She just wants to get training. And look, I will talk more about this moment later on, but I love this flashback so very much. Like, maybe it's just because of the atmosphere and what Allowed to Be Happy brings to this scene, but it just feels haunting. It feels like a memory long gone. And I like how you just really come to understand these characters and their relationship like that. Abby can't move on from Joel. Owen wants to move on and just enjoy life. They both like each other, but what's the saying? What happens when an unmovable object meets an unstoppable force? That's Abby and Owen. And you can kind of put it together in your head that, okay, well, Owen tried to move on from Abby, so he's with Mel, and he likes Mel, but not as much as he likes Abby. You start to understand this group and their dynamic better. Abby goes off, walking around, fights, bam, pew pew pew, pew pew pew, and then we get another flashback. Well, it's just before the Salt Lake crew goes to Jackson, and I actually love doing the little target practice here. It's actually lots of fun. I like how Owen's like, oh, I'm not going to write your name on the board. And Abby's like, do you not want Mel to know I was here? Like, you can just tell there's lots of tension between Abby and Mel because Mel kind of knows how Owen feels. So anyways, they start talking and it turns out Abby has found Tommy and she thinks he'll know where Joel is, and they have a conversation of what if he doesn't, and Isaac's not going to allow this. The bottom line here is Owen doesn't want to do this. He doesn't want to kill Joel. He doesn't kill. But that's all Abby can think of. So Owen reluctantly agrees, and once again, Allowed to Be Happy. This scene has a very haunting feel. We then cut to the forest. Abby's getting dragged by the Seraphites and she's getting hung. Like, this moment is brutal. But then they find Yara and they just destroy her arm. Just smash the bones to pieces with a hammer. It's like, it's not bloody, but it's brutal. Lev saves Yara, and then Yara tells Lev to save Abby. The three work together until They get to safety. Well, Abby then leaves them behind, and she just wants to get back to Owen. She goes through a shipyard, she goes through a boat, she gets to Owen, and she gets to the boat. If you know, you know. And I think this is one of the most underrated moments of the game. Well, Abby is talking to Owen about what happened, and Owen just says, this guy was just so odd. And he just couldn't bring himself to killing him. And Danny gets in his face about it, and he grabs his gun, and at first he didn't even know who was shot. And I like how Abby's like, okay, look, we can figure this out. We'll just explain this to Isaac. And Owen's just checked out. He's done. I don't want to fight over land that I don't give a fuck about. He wants to head south to Santa Barbara in hopes of finding the Fireflies. He's had it. And Abby's just like, oh, okay, whatever. Like, look how grown up I am. And Owen's like, oh, well, what, you think because you killed the man who murdered your dad, you're now grown up? And I like that. What, you think it makes you better? You think now you're more mature because you didn't move on after your dad's death? And now they also realize that nothing's keeping them apart now. So they kiss, they have sex, and Abby has a dream about how if the kids die, it would be her fault. So she wants to avoid feeling guilt. She wants to just not add more pain to how she's feeling. So the next day she goes to rescue them and brings them back. And Mel's at the aquarium because it's like reality check. Sure, you guys had sex yesterday, but don't forget, Owen's with Mel and she's pregnant. So things aren't so simple. This is a very messy love triangle. And Mel checks out Yara and she tells Abby to get some equipment from the hospital. And Abby and Lev go to the hospital. And this section is to develop the relationship between these two characters. And I'll talk more about this section later. Bridge. Okay, let's go down to the hospital. Oh, I don't have a mask. Okay, I'll get you a mask. And then Abby gets to the hospital. It's so cool to see the hospital from this point of view. Like, you see Bill, you see all the people you massacred as Ellie, and you go inside. Oh, well, handcuffed Abby. Let me out of here. Noah comes in. Here, I'll help you out. And I love how the wolves always say, may your survival be long and may your death be swift. But here Abby's expecting to die, so she says to Noah, not may your death be swift, may my death be swift. And Noah gets tortured later on. Really well done. You get the racking part, blah 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 blah. Once again, I will talk about this stuff later. It's just not important to the story as a whole. They get back to the aquarium, the surgery is a success, and Yara is going to do fine. I like that conversation between Owen and Abby about how they're just kids. And Abby has a dream that night, and this time it's her father. She doesn't feel guilt. She's on a path of redemption. And she actually has a good sleep for once. We then get to Abby Day 3. Well, Abby talks to Mel, and Mel's like, I'm going to Santa Barbara, but only if you don't. That upsets Abby, and Mel calls Abby a piece of shit. And Abby is very unhappy. Abby and Yara start walking around where they talk about Lev. And they try to find Lev a gift. Owen goes to talk to Abby, and I love this conversation about how we're allowed to be happy. And Soon it turns out that Lev is going to the island to try to convince their mom to come with them. So Abby and Yara are going to go after Lev. Owen wants to, but Abby shuts him down, tells him to get his priorities straight. And that is the last thing she ever says to him. Abby goes along alone for just a bit while she runs into Manny, getting attacked by a sniper. I love this section, and I will talk about it later, I swear. But then Manny gets killed. And Tommy and Abby fight, and it's... The first time you're playing it, it feels like such a long time since you've seen Ellie's crew. So it's kind of surreal to see Tommy and to fight him. And then you remember, oh yeah, Jesse left because there was a sniper at the pier. We were already told this information. That's really cool to me. They then go to the island where they find Lev. And Lev wanted her mom to go with them. The mom couldn't accept Lev's choices, so she tries to kill her. And Lev defends herself and kills her mom in self-defense. Really sad stuff. It is. But now they gotta get off the island, and the wolves and the Seraphite attack is happening. They get caught by a crew. Isaac comes along. Yara gets shot. Isaac wants to kill Lev. Abby won't let this happen. Yara sacrifices the last bit of life she has to protect her sister and her friend. And yeah, Abby and Lev escape. And I love when Lev is just like, those were your people. And Abby's like, you're my people. Great line. And I'll talk more about all this stuff in depth later because, you know, it's a whole thing, but this stuff is really exciting. They do escape the island and they get back to the aquarium where Owen and Mel's dead bodies are there and Abby is just devastated. And it is a very sad moment. They then find the map. They go to the theater. We see Abby sneaking in through the window. I like how it's like it uses what you do as Ellie, but as Abby. Like it kind of feels like the game betrays you here in the best kind of way. And Abby attacks Tommy, kills Jesse. We're back where we started. And Tommy protects Ellie, gets shot through the leg and in the head as a result. At first, you think he's dead, but he's not. I'll talk more about this section later on, but it's brilliant. Like, this is how you do an action scene. You make it feel like anybody could die at any point. The stakes feel high, it's tense, it's bloody. This section is so good. But as Abby gets the upper hand on Ellie and Dina, Abby's about to kill Dina, but Lev gets her to stop. And Abby and Lev move on. Just a brilliant, heavy moment. And we then cut to a year later? It's been some time. And JJ's born. Ellie is at a farm. And it's so cool to play as Ellie again because it feels like such a long time. You just think to yourself, I've missed you, Ellie. But her and Dina are in a farmhouse. They're raising sheep. They've got a nice life out here. And it's just wonderful. Until Ellie has a PTSD attack. I love this moment. I love how those staircases feel so long. And how Joe's screaming out for Ellie. Just so she can feel more weight. Like more guilt. So I've been talking for quite some time now. And then next day, Ellie's out hunting. She goes back to the house and somebody's there. Who could possibly be there? and you hear Tommy laugh, and you're like, holy shit, he survived. He can barely walk, one eye's gone, but he's alive. Not well, though. It turns out Maria has left him, and it's like a friendly catch-up section, but then he's like, okay, here's where Abby is. Here is what you're going to do. And you just think to yourself, shut up, Tommy. Just let it be. And Ellie at first declines, and Tommy makes her feel like shit about it. Dina goes out to just give Tommy shit. And then that night, Ellie wakes up and she grabs the guitar. And we get a flashback of what happened the night before this game started. Well, Ellie and Jesse are talking about how Joe is giving Jesse a hard time. Dina's out being a free spirit and wants to dance with Ellie. They then talk and Dina kisses Ellie. Seth is just like, hey, don't do that. There's kids here. Sorry. Oh, just what this town needs. Another loudmouthed dyke. Excuse me? And Joe jumps in here. And Joe defends Ellie. And he goes to ask, are you alright? Right? I didn't ask for your fucking help, Joe. He had no right, and you do? Oh no, this is when she says, I didn't ask for your fucking help. But it's such a sad moment, and the look on Joe's face. You know, he looks around, everyone's staring at him. He's humiliated. He's getting yelled at the person he loves most. And he's just like, okay. I'll talk more about that scene later on. But it cuts to Ellie and she's packing things up. She's going to go after Abby and Dina begs her to stay. And Ellie's just like, I can't. I don't sleep. I don't eat. I have to do this. It's like the only way she'd be able to find peace. And Dina's just like, she doesn't get to be more important than this. But Ellie goes anyways. We then cut to a shot of convos. And at first you're like, is that Ellie? But no, it's Lev. And Lev and Abby are looking for a house. They find it. They locate the fireflies. Things are looking up for them only for boom! Get taken out. Brutally beaten. Captured. You don't know who these guys are at this point, but it's not looking too good. Ellie comes to Santa Barbara and she's wandering around looking for Abby. And I love the cutscene where Ellie falls into a trap and she gets strung up and she gets stabbed by a tree branch right here and she's bleeding and she drops her knife. Like, it is tense. And then those two guys come along and they drop her and the guy gets scared by the clicker and she's like, looks like you shit your pants. And the guy gets mad and I love how Ellie pushes back, and then leans forward. Very smartly done. She gets bitten again, which does have weight behind it. She grabs a gun, shoots them. She's got the upper hand. The big guy tells her where Abby is. So Abby makes her way through this location. She kills everybody. She lets the prisoners out. Well, the prisoners then tell Ellie that Abby is at the Pillows. So Ellie goes down there, and there's one girl with a braid, and I thought that was Abby. But then you find Abby, and like her hair's cut off. She looks so small and weak. And like it looks like she's barely hanging on. You let Abby go, she immediately goes to grab Lev. And at this point, you just think to yourself, what am I doing here? Like, why? You make your way towards those boats, and Ellie's about to let Abby go. And she gets a flashback of Joe and getting like beaten, and She just can't. She holds the knife to Abby. Abby doesn't want to fight. Ellie threatens Lev, and Abby then agrees to fight. And I've played this game so many times, and I bawl my eyes out every time here. It's just, I don't want them to fight anymore. I care about Ellie, I care about Abby. I understand why they hate each other, but come on, just move on, please. And it's brutal. Like, Ellie's, like, she's stabbing Abby, she's cutting her up. And, like, the fact that you're the one inflicting pain, you don't want to do it. You know, like, your brain says you have to, your heart says no. And Ellie gets her fingers bitten off. And as Abby's drowning, Ellie gets one flashback of Joel on a porch. And we haven't seen this shot before. And Ellie then lets go of Abby. You know? Was it because she forgives Joel? Is it because she forgives herself? Is it because she's tired of just inflicting pain? We don't really know, but she's had enough. And it's a good thing she let go. And she tells Abby, go, just take him. And Abby and Lev leave. And that shot of Ellie just in the pool, in the water as the music is playing. And she's all alone. You know, she told Sam in part 1 about how her biggest fear is ending up alone, and she's all alone. And then it cuts to some time ahead. Ellie's fingers are gone. She goes to the farmhouse and it's empty. Dina left. She goes upstairs and Dina left the guitar. And Ellie tries to play it, but she can't. She's missing her fingers. Just when you play the do, you're just like, shit. How could this possibly be more depressing? But then we get another flashback. And it's Joel and Ellie talking the night before Joel died. What are you drinking? Coffee. Where'd you get that? You know, those people who passed through last week? Kinda embarrassed as to what I had to trade to get it. You need to stop harassing Jesse about my patrols. Okay. You know, and I had Seth under control. Okay. Dina, is she your girlfriend? I know, she's just... I know. You know, I do know that she would be lucky to have you. You're such an asshole. I'm not trying to... I was supposed to die in that fucking hospital. In that hospital. My life would have fucking mattered. But you took that from me. And Joel stands up, saying what he's about to say with confidence, with meaning. If somehow the Lord gave him another chance at that moment, I would do it all over again. And Ellie's just like, and I don't think I can ever forgive you for that. But I would like to try. And Joe replies, I would like that. As you can see that he's crying. He only cries when Sarah dies and Hugh. He is so happy. And then Ellie says, see you tomorrow. And Joe's just like, okay. The next time Ellie sees Joe is when he's beaten. And Ellie then leaves the guitar behind because remembering and holding on to Joel has caused her nothing but pain. So she lets go. And then the music plays as Ellie wanders. Where to? We don't know, but she's moving on. It is the greatest ending that will ever exist. it recontextualizes the game in ways I will go in depth in later. But like, make no mistake, it is a happy ending. Ellie keeps her soul intact. She didn't kill Abby. Her redemption path is right ahead. She is capable of change. You know, it's like the first game ends like, you know, they are together, but like it's external happy, internal sad. This one is external sad, internal happy. Very smartly written, and I love how during the credits, you know, you get Wayfaring Stranger, Ellie sings, it sounds really nice. But then Joe joins in. It's so good. Just so good. And like, look, if I counted the amount of times I cried during this game, the opening, I'll be honest, just seeing these characters again, Joel's death, the museum scene, Ellie coming back bruised, and Dina cleaning her up, the flashback where we find out the truth about what happened, Ellie killing Mel and Owen, Jesse dying, Abby's dad dying. I'll be honest, the Abby flashbacks, they get to me. They do. Abby Day 2, Okay, so what, 10? Abby Day 2, no, nothing really. Abby Day 3. Mandy's death isn't sad, but you do feel the weight of it, but still 10. Lev killing her mom. 11. Them leaving behind Haven as it burns to the ground, for reasons I'll get into in a bit. 12. Tommy getting killed, honestly. Dan's flashback, Ellie leaving Dina, the entire final fight, the final flashback, Ellie coming back to the farmhouse, the ending 19, 20 times is how many times I cry here. And I bawl my eyes out. It is such an emotional game. And I also love the main menu because it begins and you're like, oh, bots. Where are these bots from? And then at the end, you're like, ah, that's the main menu bots. And then after the game, it changes to where the fireflies are. So it tells you that that Abby and Lev got to the fireflies. There's a story in the main menu, and it doesn't just establish the atmosphere. So I love the story. But it's time to talk about the cast and characters. And I say this without exaggeration, but Ashley Johnson gives the greatest performance ever in this game. Like, she brings so much emotional depth to Ellie, and the moments where she has to deliver, holy shit does she deliver. When she's watching Joel die and she's screaming, Joel, fucking get up. Joel, get up. Please don't do this. Like, this entire game relies on that moment. And, man, anytime I hear her screaming out there, I just break into tears. It's such a powerful performance. But later on, like when you even see just how much damage Ellie is doing to herself, she really just makes you feel it. You know, when she comes back and she's shaking and Dina's cleaning her up and she's like, I made her talk. I don't want to lose you. Or when she finds out the truth about what happened at Salt Lake City and she starts crying and she tells Joe, don't you fucking touch me. I'll go back, but we're done. Or when it's a dance and she tells Joe, oh, and you do? I don't need your fucking help, Joe. Or when she's talking to Tommy or Dina, just, she always is authentic as this character, and she brings lots of personality and energy and heartbreak and dramatic weight. Like, it's just a masterclass in acting. And I love how in the first game, she is the heart and soul. You know, like, she's always cracking jokes, she's making Joel a better person. But here, she's quite the opposite. She is the one getting corrupted, she turns into a monster, and she becomes the worst version of herself. You know, there's actually this very small moment at a Halloween store where Dina's like, oh, look, this stuff is kind of neat. And Ellie's like, I don't like it. Because in The Last of Us Left Behind, Ellie and Riley go to a Halloween store, which Ellie just loves. And then, you know, now she hates that stuff. She's grown up. She's now hating the stuff she used to love. And we also see how she hates herself for how she treated Joel. You know, and throughout this game, we see her torture, kill many people. She uses Tommy as a way to manipulate Jesse and Dina. She calls Dina a burden. She really does become unlikable throughout. And at the end, where she sticks her knife to Lev's throat, like, it just sucks to be. It just sucks to see someone so good become so bad. And yeah, she's just amazing here. So yeah, Ellie is a top 2 character of all time for me. It's Ellie and Jinx, and I go back and forth, but just so well written. And then we've got Laura Bailey as Abby, and she does a phenomenal job. You know, like I said earlier, you start off hating this character. You want her tortured, you want her killed, and then we see her again after a long break, and she kills Jesse, so you still really hate her, and we then get her backstory. And we understand why she did what she did to Joel, but it still wasn't enough for me to care. In fact, I think it's an interesting thought experiment to talk about when did you start caring for Abby? Because for me, it was when Abby and Lev were on the bridges. Just, I don't know, when Lev asks Abby about what's going on with Owen, and Abby's like, heal now, Lev? Really? That's the moment where I started to care. And I like how, you know, like, a lesser story would have had Abby's story just to be the prologue to it, where we understand her. But instead, it focuses on how killing Joel didn't bring her any peace. In fact, it just seemed to make things worse, and, you know, we see how at first she was young and innocent, and over the years, she has fixated on her revenge quest. She has pushed away Owen. She's gotten bigger because she's just training to kill Joel. That is her life purpose. And I like how in her story, we see how she's trying to redeem herself through Lev and Yar. You know, and Abby is supposed to hate the Seraphites, so as she spends time with her enemies and comes to understand them, we are spending time with our enemy and starting to care for her as well. And I like how this game isn't by the end, like, oh, Abby is good now. Like, did she redeem herself? You know, it's a big question of, do her actions of helping Lev and Yara actually redeem her? Do they get rid of every bad thing that she has ever done? And the answer is no, but it's still good for the soul, and you should continue down this path. And I even like how it shows how she stumbles at certain points. She finds out Dina is pregnant and she's like, good, this is the Abby we knew at the beginning of the game. But Lev brings out the humanity in her and she leaves them alone. And even when Abby confronts her again at the end, she doesn't want to fight. She's over it. So I thought she brought lots of depth to this character, and Laura Bailey can do the tough monstrous side incredibly well, the sweeter side as well. She just fully understands this character and delivers. And then we've got Troy Baker as Joel, who did an amazing job here. You know, I love how he's still a badass. That line, say whatever speech you've got rehearsed and get this over with, is so good. But I like how he knows he has screwed over countless people. I like how he knows that this day was always coming for him. And he just kinda accepts it. He acknowledges his bad actions in the past and that they have consequences. But I like how throughout the last 4 years of his life, he became a better person. He developed hobbies again. You look around his place and you can see that he's been woodworking. He's become a loved member of the community. After he dies, his house has a bunch of flowers outside. Um, you know, and he just became a good man. And I love how he delivered on every promise he made to Ellie. He taught her how to swim, he taught her how to play guitar, he sung for her. He became the father he never could be to Sarah. And it's just so sweet to see. So, and like the Ellie and Joe relationship does have so much depth because Ellie's viewpoint is if she helped make a vaccine, then she would save millions of lives. Like, she can't do that by herself. That is the highest achievement of good someone can do in their life. And Joe took that chance from her, but he believes her life is worth more than that. He really does love that girl more than anything else. And whenever he talks about what he did, he always says that he saves her. That's how he views it. So, like, and I like how Ellie knows that Joe is lying. It kind of taints the end of the museum day. It taints the trip to the music shop. And it does eventually erode their relationship for good. She tries to let go of this lie, but she just can't. She has to know the truth. And then Ellie just pushes Joe away for the last few years of this guy's life. And she was just cruel to him. And like she was so nasty, and that is why Ellie struggles throughout this game. Because it's not just grief, but it's regret. And I also like how if you pay attention to the beginning of the game on a second playthrough, you actually get lots of closure there. Ellie was going to watch a movie with Joel. And Ellie said she wants to go out like Eugene, of old age. She has realized her life has greater meaning. So this relationship is just taken to the next level. I really hate when people say this game isn't about Joe and Ellie because It definitely is. You might not see Joel for much of it, but you feel him in every second. And then we've got Shannon Woodward as Dina, and she just has this wonderful, confident, kind of sexy personality. Like, you can tell that lots of the guys want her, but she wants Ellie. And I love how you think Joel and Ellie's story is the most brutal story in this universe, that these two characters do the best. But then you find out that Dina killed her first human at age 10. You find out Dina has the most kills for the patrols. Like, she... It's a nice subversion of expectation that Joel and Ellie aren't these amazing, legendary characters. They're just another people. And Dina kind of keeps that idea grounded. And I like how she stands by Ellie thick and thin. Even after Ellie calls her a burden, she still wakes up and helps out the best she can. Her pregnancy does start to limit what she can and can't do, but she still cleans up Ellie, she supports her, she cares for her, and she's heartbroken when Ellie leaves her. All of that wasn't enough. And it is really sad how their relationship fell apart. I am curious if she would be in the third game. But yeah. I also like how she mentions earlier that she wants to live in a farmhouse and she gets to live out that dream. But then we've got Stephen A. Chang as Jesse, who does a great job. I like how his introduction scene is like him pretending to be insecure, but then he's like, no, I'm actually cool. Just a really good friend. He cares about the people in his life. He can joke around, but still take things seriously. And I like how, what does he say? My friend's problems are my problems. And, he's going to be a dad, but he gets himself killed before that. He is a really great character. He brings a nice different perspective to this story. Then we've got Jeffrey Pierce as Tommy, who does a great job. I love how Tommy was always the more good of the brothers. He wanted to help people. He left the awful life behind. And his relationship with Joel is fully rebuilt. He knows Joel's secret. He'll take it to the grave. And after Joel dies, he's broken up. He goes on a revenge quest, but he still keeps his humanity intact. But I think the final scene we see of Tommy is devastating because it's just not Tommy. It shows how grief and pain can change a person. When he tells Ellie to pretty much sacrifice her life to go after Abby, it just feels like a betrayal of this character. Like, you're Tommy, you can't be saying stuff like that. And it's actually really sad that his story ended the way it did in this game. Then we've got Ashley Scott as Maria, who does a great job. I like how you can tell she cares for Ellie. She tries to get Ellie to talk to Joel before he dies. She lets Ellie and Dina go on their quest. She seems like a very respected and reasonable person. And then we've got Patrick Fugit as Owen, who did a great job. I love his voice. It's very distinct to me. And Owen is one of my favorite characters ever, I'll say. This is a guy who loved Abby so much, and after her dad died, he lost her. She pushed him away and she became a different person. And I kind of like how he found peace in this aquarium and he made it his project. And Owen just wants to enjoy life, while Abby seems content in her suffering. You know, he's like the angel on her shoulders, only to get ignored constantly. And he's tired of fighting, he's tired of killing. It has had a heavy hold on his soul, and he just wants a better life. And yes, okay, he's also a cheating scumbag, and I'm not defending cheating, but you do understand it in this circumstance. You know, everything's messy. He cared for Mel. Mel accepted him, but he loved Abby, and she's now ready to be with him, but he's with Mel. He's going to be a dad. And I don't know. I don't know what would have happened after this game if he stayed alive. I don't know if he would have left Mel. I don't know if he would have gone with Abby. I don't know what kind of father he would have been if he would have been absent. I do not know. But there is still lots of good to this character, and his optimism might be naive, but it's something that is so desperately needed in this world. And his death is tragic, especially because he was the one to save Ellie's life, and she now returned the favor by killing him. A really sad end to his story, and just like how one of the last things Ellie said to Joel was, "I didn't ask for your fucking help." One of the final things Abby said to Owen was, "Get your priorities straight." Like, was her rejecting him. And Abby has to live with that guilt forever. And then we've got Ian Alexander as Lev, and I know people aren't going to like what I have to say here, but I'm not a fan of the whole transgender thing. I'm not going to, this is a review, I'm not going to explain myself further, but I will say that sure, this game has a transgender character, but it never feels preachy. It never argues anything biologically. In fact, it leans into societal norms as much as possible. So while I still disagree with the way that this character is talked about and how people call her a he, Lev is still a great character. Lev just didn't want to be a wife. She didn't want the duties assigned to her, so she cut her hair off in a form of rebellion, which is very accurate to being a teenager. She becomes in a power state, hunted down by her own people, and Lev just wants to leave with her sister and her mom. But then when her mom tries to kill her, Lev kills her in self-defense, and that's really sad. And just a few minutes after that, she loses her sister, and now all she has is Abby. It is a really sad story, and you do care for her. And I also like how when you play as Ellie, you can hear people talk about Lily. Just very smartly done. Then we've got Victoria Grace as Yara, and I like how she stands by her sister despite the difficult situation they're in, and I like how kind and sympathetic she is towards Abby. Derek Phillips as Jerry does a great job. I like how he's a loving father, he's a respected doctor, and I know there's nuance in the conversation, but he does what he believes is right. That killing a child is worth it if it saves millions of lives. And he gets killed for that. I know we like to pretend that it's so simple, but we always like to pretend to talk about that like it's the person we love and Ellie's position. But what if it was someone we love who died of the infection? Like it's complicated, and I like how they give him some depth. And I like how Molly Dandridge as Molly comes back for one scene here. She does a great job. But I like how we see a very different side of the character here. How she truly didn't like this decision, how she cared for Ellie, but now we know how she had to put on a face for Joel. It actually makes the character more interesting in hindsight. Chelsea Tavares as Noah does a great job. I love her personality. I love how she helps Abby when she can. She cares for her friends. And I like how she might be reasonable. Do you still hear his screams? Yeah, that little bitch got what he deserved. And you're like, oh, I hate her. And she dies horrifically, getting tortured and killed by Ellie. Alexander Ida as Manny has lots of personality. He seems to be well liked. He's a slut, but he also does truly care for Abby. Ashley Bush as Mel loves Owen, but knows that he loves Abby more, and it does make her insecure. She tries to get along with Abby, but she just can't. And she just views Abby as fake. That this big redemptive crest is one giant act. And I like how right before she dies, Owen kind of makes it clear that he likes Abby more. Like, I know she can be very difficult and she can be an ass, but this is a very sad character. Then we've got Jeffrey Wright as Isaac, and I love how in the first half you hear people talk about him. You get his story through the notes about how he led the uprising against Fedra. And then we see him. And Abby walks into that building. There's all these tortured people. Isaac is torturing someone right at that moment. And I like how he tells the guy, don't let him fall asleep. Just that one line gives you chills. But I like how we see how he becomes everything that he fought against. He becomes just like Fedra. He becomes actually more evil, which is very funny because it kind of reminds me of President Coin in the Hunger Games movies, and well, he's in the Hunger Games movies. Like, yeah, a really great character who's only in 2 scenes, I believe, but they find a way to give him depth. Then we've got Chase Austin as Jordan, and I just like his personality. He's a real asshole, but also pretty reasonable. So, everybody does a great job here. All of these characters had more than enough depth. Just a truly exceptional job from everyone involved. And I do kind of want to talk about the structure next because, well, the first time I played this game, I was caught off guard multiple times. Like, I thought Ellie knew that Joel was lying for years, so she pushes him away, but she doesn't know for sure. When we find out Eugene's a Firefly, you think, is she going to find out here? And then Joel dies, and that really surprised me at first. And I thought the wolves were former fireflies. Like, it didn't catch me off guard, that's exactly who they were. But I thought the story was going to be about Ellie finding out the truth. I thought Ellie was going to, go on this revenge quest. Well, she finds out for sure what Joel did. But then we get to the scene where Ellie is facing off against Noah, and as soon as Noah says you're whole, you're like, oh, she already knows, I think. And then you get the flashback. And it adds layers because now we know the story isn't about Ellie finding out the truth. It's about how Ellie loved Joel but felt betrayed, pushed him away, and now he's gone. How do you cope with that? You spent the last few years of that man's life hating on him. And then you get the flashback of the dance and you realize it's what happened the night before. And then the last flashback you get of Ellie forgiving Joel. Like, the first time I played this game, it constantly surprised me. It surprised me that Joel died. It surprised me what Ellie knew. It surprised me that we play as Abby, and it kept surprising me. And like by the end of the game, it's made it clear that this isn't a revenge is bad story. It's about how we take people for granted and how we always think we have more time, but we don't. And there's just so many things you don't notice on the first playthrough. Like I said, Joe and Ellie were going to watch a movie. Ellie telling Maria that her and Joel are fine, and she was actually telling the truth. Ellie wanting to die like Eugene did. The Seraphites talking about what Lily did. The Wolves talking about how Abby escaped. Dina talking about how Oren has gone AWOL. Ellie writes in her diary, all I have is our last conversation. These Tommy sniping foreshadowing is pitch perfect. The way he tells you to snipe is how he tries to snipe you as Abby later on. Just really well done. Like I said earlier, Mel's pregnancy was told to you at the very start. You can see the sky bridges as Ellie. Like, you start to notice all these things on a second playthrough, and it just makes you realize how well thought out this story was. And the structure is essential to the story because it constantly recontextualizes everything. Every flashback of Joel and Ellie gives new information about their relationship, changing the purpose of Ellie's revenge quest because it's not just revenge for Joel's death, but it's revenge for the fact that Ellie wasted the last few years hating Joel and now he's gone. The reason she's after Abby is really just an extension of her self-hatred. And I like how challenging this game is. You hate Abby, you want her to die, you want her to suffer, and then you have to play as her. It's a big ask. And, at first I was so reluctant to that idea, but the game pulled it off. They took a giant swing and they knocked it out of the park. It is such a bold, risky decision. And I like the 3-day structure for Abby and Ellie. Just a perfect amount of days. I think it was actually supposed to be 5 at a point, but then they're like, no, 3 will do. I like how even Abby's and Owen's flashbacks recontextualize her story because it's a reminder of what has been lost in Abby's life because of her revenge. So like with Ellie's flashbacks, you find out her purpose. And with Abby's flashbacks, it's kind of a tease of what's to come in Ellie's life. You know, that if Ellie keeps pushing Dina away, it's going to be too late. And that is exactly what happens. Like, the structure of this story is just the absolute best. It is. But now it's time to talk about some of the themes here. And first, we're going to begin with the obvious one, and it's grief. Because Joe is dead, Jerry is dead, and nothing can bring them back. I've never felt someone die in a piece of media as much as Joe's death here. Ellie and Owen is dead as well, and Ellie and Abby can't go back and do things differently. Everything said, every decision made with them is now concreted. There's no more getting extra time. There's no more making things better. It's just is what it is. And I love how when Abby is talking to Dina about how Joe, Tommy, Maria are the only ones who knew. I love that scene so much because it shows how you now have to talk about someone as past tense now. The way you talk about them is different. And I like how there's a part of this game where we feel like we have to be miserable after we lose someone, because if we don't, then we're disrespecting them and our relationship to them. It's about how some people don't allow themselves to be happy, because to be happy means to move on, and to move on means to forget them. But ultimately, at the end of the game, that is what it says you should do. And it's very interesting to think about. Are you disrespecting someone's memory because you're happy? And I love how the track Allowed to Be Happy ties into that idea. And then there's a whole aspect of this game about sympathizing with the enemy. You know, can you spend hours wishing a painful, terrible death upon someone only to then eventually care for them? Like I already said, it is one of the more challenging parts of this game. You know, you hate Abby just like Abby hated Joel. It's all that's on Ellie's mind. But do you have it in your heart to let go of all that hatred and rage and sadness? And you see Abby sympathize with her enemies, the Seraphites. She comes to care for Lev and Laura despite of years being conditioned to hate them. And if Abby can do it, if someone so evil and vile can do that, why can't we? And then there's also a part of this game about tribalism, about how whether you view people as individuals or members of a group, like, is Abby just a wolf? Is Owen? Like, Owen goes AWOL, the wolves are after Abby, they're going to leave, but they're still viewed as a wolf. You know, it's funny too, because there's one section where Ellie's fighting these deserters, and they think Ellie is a wolf. And because of that, they try to kill her. Some Seraphites call Ellie a wolf, and that's why they try to kill her. So I find it funny how they view her as the enemy because she's just kind of there. And I like how Owen protected Ellie and ended up dying for it. But Ellie didn't even hear all that stuff. She just viewed him as another wolf. You know, like, you kind of strip down people of their individuality and just view them as a collective evil that's easy to hate. Lev and Yaw are Seraphites until they're not. But they're still viewed that way by the wolves. And there's also this one story, which I'll talk more about later on. Well, if you read the notes, there's a guy named Gray who leaves the wolves, and he becomes Emmett with the Seraphites, and his allegiance changes. So, like, now he's a Seraphite, but if people saw him, how would they view him? Would they view him as a traitor? Like, it kind of reminds me of sports teams. Hear me out. I'm not a sports guy. I don't care about hockey, football, baseball. I don't care. I only care about sports movies, especially Goon and Challengers. But anyways, I think it's really silly that people root for sports teams. I do. Because, like, are you rooting for this team because of the location? Because they're the team closest to you? But, like, I live in Alberta and I know people who root for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Why? Like, were you from there? Does your allegiance not change when you come to Alberta? What happens if you moved again to New York? Would you then root for the New York Rangers? Do you root for a player? What if he switches teams? Why do you care about the team that you care about? And I like how this game kind of just shows how every group is made up of individuals on their own path. It's very smartly written. There's also an aspect of this game, and I love talking about this, and it's how nobody knows everything. Abby thinks Joe killed her dad because he was just a crazy madman. Not once did she actually stop and think about how he was trying to rescue Ellie. No one tries to understand or justify Joel's actions. Abby kills Joel, and Ellie thinks it's because Joel took away the chance for a cure. When Abby has them held up at the theater, she's like, I'm the one that you want. There's no cure because of me. But it's actually because Joel killed her dad. It's funny too because Abby encounters Tommy, who killed Manny, so because of that, she thinks Tommy killed all her friends. She goes upstairs at the theater and she sees that Noah and Jordan and everybody else is dead because of Tommy, but we know it's because of Ellie and Dina for the most part. Even the Seraphites killed Leah, but Abby would think it's Tommy. So I guess the bottom line is, no one knows who's doing what and why they're doing what they're doing. They don't care. It's easier to just view them as pure evil, as an evil that needs to be extinguished, instead of viewing them as human. And I really like how that kind of goes against what Joel thinks, which is he just doesn't care. He doesn't try to understand Abby. He knows he's done bad things. He kind of accepts his fate. So there's lots of interesting character stuff there, but there's actually a greater aspect of this conflict, which goes to the whole conflict between the wolves and the Seraphites. The Seraphites and the wolves had a truce, but some kids did something and somebody shot them, but who attacked who first? The wolves blame the Seraphites blame the wolves. It's messy and no one knows who did what. Who was the first one to fire? Nobody knows. All they know is they have to kill each other now. And the wolves and Seraphites conflict is a bigger representation of the Abby-Ellie conflict. And it comes together beautifully in Abby's day 3, while she's on the island. The wolves come there, the Seraphites start fighting back, and the island is destroyed, everything's on fire, plenty of innocents killed in the crossfires. It just looks like hell. And it seems like nobody won. Everybody dies. This is what happens when you just want to hate for the sake of hating, when you don't want to understand. This is what it looks like. I actually think it's really haunting when Lev and Abby leave the island and you can just hear the screams. So like this aspect of the game is so well done. And then I also want to discuss morality and is Abby good or bad and is Ellie good or bad? And I'm trying my best not to repeat too much here, but you understand the decisions both characters make, but you disagree with them. You wish Abby never killed Joel. You wish Ellie would move on and just find contentment. So ultimately, their worst enemies isn't each other. Their worst enemies is themselves. And does one bad act summarize your whole character? What about years of bad deeds? Can one good act save you? Do you have to do years of good acts? Can you be redeemed? Like if you tortured and killed this person, can you come back from that? And once again, like I kind of already said, I don't know, but good acts will make you feel better. You know, I know some people complain about this, but I love how Abby goes through so much just to save Yara, and she dies anyways just like that. Does this now negate Abby's character growth? Was everything she did pointless? And the answer here is objectively no. So I guess it's less about some sort of, reality, some sort of objectivity, and it's more about your soul, your conscience. And my question is Abby good or bad? The answer is yes. Is Ellie good or bad? The answer is yes. They're both humans capable of good and bad actions. And, sometimes stories try to blur the lines between good and bad, and this game never does. You always know what's a good thing to do and what's a bad thing to do. Lots of things Joe does here is good, same as Jesse, same with Owen, despite the cheating. But like lots of things that Ellie and Abby do, and the wolves and Owen with the cheating are bad. So there's still a line between good and bad, but it doesn't separate it. But it separates it through actions and not by character. So I guess the bottom line is everybody's capable of good and bad. And you gotta hope they choose good. And then we get to the part of the game that is about forgiveness and redemption. And I'm going to talk a bit about the first game here because Joel, we don't see those 20 years, but we know he did some bad shit with Tommy. But he finds Ellie and she brings out the good in him. She brings out the humanity in him again. And Abby goes through a very similar character arc here. She loses somebody she cares about, and it brings out the worst in her. She becomes a monster, she tortures and kills, and then she finds love, and love brings out the best in her. And I like how we see that Joel does become a better person after part 1, and I like how we see Abby become a better person near the end of this game. So if Joel and Abby can become better, well then there's hope for Ellie. Ellie and Abby are on the same journey that Joel went on, they're just at different stages. Abby has gone through such and now she needs to be redeemed. She needs to forgive herself, while Ellie was in the self-destructive stage for so long. So I guess Ellie's just farther behind. And I kind of like how if you really look at forgiveness here, it kind of ties into the ideas of grief, how it comes through acceptance. And also how lack of forgiveness and lack of acceptance can cause one to self-destruct. You know, it can ruin relationships and make you eat less. It can prevent sleep. Abby becomes a terrible person. Abby was a terrible person, and when they indulge in the worst intentions, worst actions, it only brought them more pain and suffering and regret. And I know people try to simplify this game as revenge is good. I mean, revenge is bad, and nobody says revenge is good here, but it's still really well done. You know, it shows how people always try to justify their shitty actions, and then we see how it's a cycle. Abby got revenge, which caused Ellie to seek revenge, and once again, it only caused more pain for both of them. There was a whole conversation with Jesse about how, okay, well, how do we know if they want to come back to Jackson? Well, because, yeah, but what if they have people who are going to seek revenge on them? Like, you just get the sense that after this, you know, they could go to Jackson, and after that, Ellie could get revenge again, and then they can get revenge again, and it goes back and forth, back and forth. This toxic cycle of self-hatred and regret and pain and suffering. And it's just an endless cycle. You know? The Jackson crew isn't any different from the Wolf crew. And that all leads me to the point where I needed to talk about the ultimate message of this game. And yes, it's about revenge is bad, and it's about love and loss. It's about so much. But if you asked me, Gavin, what is the one key message of this game? I would say it is about letting go. Abby needed to let go of Jerry's death and enjoy her life. Ellie needed to let go of Joel's lie and enjoy her life with him. And then Ellie needed to let go of Joel's death. Tommy needed to let go of his hatred for Abby. Lev needed to let go of her mom. Oren needed to let go of his love for Abby. And like I said, everybody is the worst enemy. You know, there's a one line that's repeated a couple times in this game, how it's a lead. I have to see it through. And just simply put, no, you don't. You don't need to see it through. And the final shot of this game is so powerful because Ellie doesn't just forgive herself, but she's letting go of Joel. And it's sad because you love people and you want to hold on to them and their memory and how they shaped you into the person that you are. But you just, if you're always fixated on that, it's just going to make you live a miserable, shitty life. So yes, you need to let go. Ellie leaving the guitar behind, moving on from Joel, moving on with her life. It's such a powerful message, but it's what she should have done at the start. If she did that at the start, she could still have a happy life with Dina and JJ. Jesse would still be around. Tommy would still be with Maria. If Abby let go, she could have a happy life with Owen. If, you know, it's, yeah. I also do want to talk about the brutality and the unexpected deaths in this game, because I love how brutal it is. One of my favorite moments is when Abby's fighting that big guy and Lev shoots him in the face with an arrow. Abby then breaks the arrow, cuts the guy's face open. It's so cool. It's so metal. Abby beating up Ellie and Dina in the theater, that scene is brutal. When Abby kills Joel, it is relentless. The final fight is so difficult to digest. And I like how suddenly people can die, because it's actually important thematically. You know, tomorrow is never promised with anyone. You shouldn't take people for granted. So the fact that Joel happens immediately, you wouldn't expect. The fact that Jesse dies like that, you wouldn't expect. Manny dies like that, you wouldn't expect. Yara dies suddenly. Tommy suddenly gets injured, and he will be for the rest of his life. It's not just shock value, it's just to show you that you're never safe. We all think we're invincible, but we could get sick like that. We could lose a hand like that. We could lose our lives just like that. So once again, another key message of this game is appreciate and love the people you love while you still can. And there are some cool parallels here. You know, obviously, like I said, Abby's journey and Joel's journey is a big one. I like how Abby collects coins and how Ellie collects those Starlight Savage books. It kind of shows you the kind of interests they have as people. I like how Joel thinks Ellie and Jesse will be a couple because he's got an eye for this kind of stuff, while Jerry thinks Abby and Owen will be a couple. Just kind of shows you how similar dads can be, but only Jerry was right there. I love how it focuses on Abby's feels of heights and Lev's feel of the ocean. You know, it kind of shows you just how similar we can be. We all have feels, we all have interests, we all have people who care for us. It's not just great parallels, it just shows you how we're all human. And I do like some of the foreshadowing here. I already talked about Tommy's sniper, I already talked about multiple stuff, so I'll keep this section real short and talk about how I think it is brilliant that right before Abby's second flashback, Abby gets beaten up by this one big girl and she bites off her ear. And it's such a good moment because it shows you how Abby bites. Like, that's her form of fighting. She bites. She's a biter. So when she bites off Ellie's fingers at the end, there's perfect continuity there. And I like how the game tells you at the start that Abby is afraid of heights. So later on, when you are high up, it already feels established. And I also do want to spend some time and talk about the different groups in this game, because you hear about Fedra and how awful they were, and how the wolves formed as a result. But then the wolves ended up going the same path as Fedra, and now people are trying to leave the wolves. You know, it's actually really interesting how the wolves are so caught up on their feud with the Seraphites that they don't actually pay attention to the intruders, to the Jackson gang. So their numbers were severely damaged by Ellie and Dina and Tommy, and that could have made a difference against the big attack if they weren't so focused on the Seraphites. You also hear about the Ravens, and we know nothing about them, but the implication is every place has a wolves, every place has a Seraphites, every place just has a tribal group. I like how people have different discussions of the Fireflies here. Were they good? Were they terrorists? Depends who you ask. And I like how the Seraphites can be vicious, but some are different. I like how this game kind of explores religion to a certain degree because there was this woman, very wise, loved the old world, but she gets killed by Isaac and she becomes a model as a result. And now people misinterpret what she says and they kind of use their own convictions, but like they kind of use they manipulate and twist everything she says, and to the point where this religion is, well, what do these people even believe? Like, everyone seems to have a different viewpoint. And I like how some of them don't use old world things unless they need to. I like how they scar their face because they're imperfect beings, so they should be seen as such. You know, like, that is interesting. But actually, strangely enough, my favorite group here is the one that's barely in it, and it's the Rattlers. The whole idea of kidnapping people and forcing them to fight infected for their entertainment, and then making them become infected and treating them like slaves, this is actually just freaking nasty. And you read the notes and you hear about how people are constantly trying to get away. A really well done group in such a short amount of time. I like how much of the world building comes through the notes. You know, like I said, Fedra being taken down by the wolves, how bad things have gotten. The group of Deserters are actually heading down south because of a rumor, so it makes me feel like they were trying to join the Fireflies as well. I love the story of Boris and his neighborhood about how the wolves were forcing them to move. Boris didn't want to, his daughter got killed, and now everybody else isn't fighting back against the wolves. They're just complying and becoming one of them because they don't want to die either. And Boris kills everybody as a result because they just lack conviction. Like, even the side stories here are so compelling. Like I said, Gray becoming a Seraphite, the notes of the Seraphites and the worldview. You've got Max in the aquarium. You've got, just lots of great world building. The clickers are once again just so cool and gross to look at. You've got the runners, the clickers, a lot more stalkers, and I love the stalkers. And then you've got bloaters here. Because of the rain in Seattle, it affects these ones differently. And I love looking at them. Like, they have so many things coming out, and it's so cool. You've got the Rat King, which is such a cool design. And I love the location of Seattle. I am dying to go to Seattle one day and going to every place you go to in this game. I love the constant raining here. The atmosphere is just unbelievable. I love how there's rafts throughout the city and how people have to use boats to get around. I love downtown Seattle, and you've got barcos and how they use it as a resistance like get together. The music shop, the bank, and the story of the robbers who are trying to rob this bank on Outbreak Day. And I also love how when you travel to a location, you can always see it. You know, you can see the TV station. You can see the hospital. You can see the Ferris wheel. And I also love how for Abby's one section on day one, you just follow the sunlight. It just makes it so you always know what direction to head in, and like I love the shots of Ellie on a ledge looking at the hospital. I love how, that shot of her looking at the Ferris wheel, like it makes for so many cool looking moments. But then it's time to talk about the gameplay, and this game is so much fun. It is. It's a blast to play. I like how Ellie's knife can be used throughout. I love how Abby's more tough and brutal. I love the Molotov cocktails. The mines are a wonderful addition. They really are. I love the smoke bombs. I love how you've got a silenced machine gun. I like the shotgun. The explosive arrows. Shooting someone. So satisfying every single time. As Abby, you've got the one-shot pistols. You've got the shotgun bullets that like explode into fire, which I really dug. You've got the pipe bombs. And I do love the upgrading system in these games. You've got the supplements, you've got the weapon upgrades. I love the animation for those moments, by the way. Really satisfying to watch, oddly enough. And I love how you can go stealth to combat, back to stealth, just so many different ways to approach every area. And I love how you can crawl in this game. It's such a small addition, but it's a real game changer. You crawl, you kill a guy, they see you, you crawl, they can't find you, you go up, pew, 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 you crawl again. I have played this game so many times, and I always find a way to make it feel new. And let's actually talk about some of the levels, because for the first few hours, there's no real standout sections, but then we get to the school. And I love going down that hallway. There's a classroom on the left, there's a classroom on the right. It's really fun to navigate this area. Then you've got an area where you can hide in the grass and take down people stealthy, or you can shoot them, then hide. You go onto the roof, there's a bunch of solar panels you can hide under. And then you go into the city where you fight people at, is it a gas station? Or like a car wash, a laundry place? Anyways, that's fun. Then you go to a gas station and a mechanic shop, which is really fun. Then you go to this area where there's someone up high and it's like a restaurant underneath. That's fun. I love doing the TV station. The people come in and, you can, just go about it so many different ways. I love it when you're underground and there's clickers. So if you fight the wolf soldiers, then the clickers will find you. It's just really chaotic. I love Hillcrest. The dogs are a big addition here because they smell you, so it's difficult to stay stealthy. And then, you can go inside and outside the houses. You can go on the rooftop. There might be people already on the rooftop looking for you. Once again, just so many different things you can do. Then I love the stalker section as Ellie. It's really creepy and they can jump out at you at any point, and it's just really fun to play. Then we've got the cell fights in the forest. And this stuff is hard. It really is. But it's really fun, especially the parking garage section. Then we get to the hospital, and once again, just so much fun. Then pretty quiet, pretty chill. You do some stuff outside in day 3 as Ellie, but then you get to the shopping mall, and I love this. You can swim, pop out, pew pew pew, swim underneath, pop out on the different section, pew pew pew, go up, slide down, pew pew pew. Like, so much you can do here. I love the one area where the Silverfights are fighting on the way to the aquarium. I love the rail yard section as Abby. You've got that area where there's a half broken apart building and there's snipers and there's like a bookstore and a restaurant and a bunch of tall grass. Then we've got, oh, the tilted buildings. This is awesome. You know, you jump from one building to another. There's 2 stories you can use on each one. Really fun section. Also, I love taking out those big guys. Like, you shoot them with a shotgun and it's so satisfying. Then we've got that entire forest section as Abby. Well, this to me is the most challenging. Fighting all those stalkers with just a melee weapon. And then you go in that, like, warehouse, broken down house, whatever it is. This is the hardest section of the game. It really is. I die so many times here, especially when the 2 bloater shows up. Then you've got the boat, which is fun. You've got the shipyard the next day. You've got the Seraphite outpost in the building, which is really fun. And I also love the section where you climb the bridges as Abby. Like, you really do feel the heights there. You do feel a sense of vertigo. The hotel section is so good. It kind of reminds me of Pirates of the Caribbean 2 and 3, where the Dutchman crew becomes part of the ship. Just the fact that these stalkers can pop out whenever makes it really intense. And I love the visuals here. The hospital stuff is really fun. I already kind of talked about the Rat King, but I actually find the boss to be pretty easy, but it's still very stressful, and I love the design of the Rat King so very much. It's very Resident Evil-y, and yeah, it's so cool. It's awesome. The Tommy sniping section is great and really difficult as well. Tommy is just drawing all those clickers towards you, and you kind of hate him in the moment. Then you've got everything on the island. Everything here is so much fun. That first section, you can hide in the grass, you can go underwater, you can go upstairs in the houses and do some sniping. You've got the area where the crop field is so big that you can't see anyone. That is so much fun. Then you've got the shopping mall next, which I love. I really do love that section. I love how instead of grass, you can just go underwater to hide away from people. Then you've got, okay, the section where the Seraphites and the wolves are fighting each other, and they both kind of start targeting you as well. That's lots of fun. And I love the area where you're rushing into Haven and everything is on fire. It feels epic, and I kind of wish this section was a bit longer, to be honest, but it really is so much fun. The Ellie boss is difficult as hell, and then everything in Santa Barbara is just awesome. Like, so much fun, bunch of cool different sections. The 2 big final ones, well, it's that huge open area. I die on purpose. Like, I restart encounter intentionally because it's just so much fun to do. So, like, I talk about this game like it's bleak, it's depressing, but like it's also really fun, and it brings a smile to my face whenever I play it. I do like exploring and, you know, seeing all the different environments, reading the notes. I like how you can hear the unlocking of the safes. That's neat. And that was actually also applicable for part 1, so I kind of wish I said it in that review as well. I like, well, you can also find these safe combos, like, oh, my big catch, and it turns out to be a lottery ticket and not the fish picture. And, oh, I guess we should talk about the technical parts of this game, because technically flawless. This game came out in 2020 and it still looks better than every game being released today. It really does. The graphics, from the first shot to the last, are just unbelievable. Everyone emotes so incredibly well. They feel like real people. The environments feel alive. The attention to detail is just unbelievable. But I also just love the atmosphere. I love how so many different sections use the red lighting. And I love, the rainy Seattle days. I love the warm days as well. Like, the atmosphere here is kind of intoxicating, and it's only enhanced by the brilliant score by Gustavo Santaolalla and Mac Crawler. Some of my favorite pieces of music here is Allowed to Be Happy is one of my all-time favorites. Doom, doom, doo, doo. It just sounds haunting. It actually kind of sounds like its name. Like, are we allowed to be happy? It sounds like that. I kind of wish I could download the end credit version, because I do like that one better than the official release, but either way, it's perfect. It can't last. I love that, especially how it's used early on between Ellie and Dina. It just feels like a romance is blooming. Beyond Desolation, do, 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 do. I can't do it, but it's so good. Perfect bit of music to end this game on. Restless Spirits is so atmospheric and haunting. Grieving is great. Unbound. Every piece of music is top notch. This is one of my favorite scores ever because it enhances the atmosphere, it enhances the emotion, it enhances the game. But I also need to talk about some problems I have with the soundtrack, which is, well, it is the official release for everything. Like, there was some music in Seattle Day 1 as Ellie when you're traveling downtown that you just can't find. There's a YouTube channel called Goofy from McDonald's who releases this music, and I listen to it all the time, but I need that track. I need Searching Houses is so good. It really is. Aquarium, it's a slowed down reverb of Allowed to Be Happy, but it really works. It's even more atmospheric. Joe's House has a nice bit of music. The Stadium, so many great pieces of music here that are unreleased. And also the songs. I love Ellie's cover of True Faith. I feel so extraordinary. Something's got a hold on me. Or Take Me On. Take me on. That's a great song, and I love this cover. It's very different. It kind of reminds me of the MTV Unplugged version you hear in Deadpool 2, but I do like this more. Through the Valley, it's not in the game, but it's still a very nice song on the soundtrack. And Wayfaring Stranger. And, of course, Future Days. If I ever were to lose you, I'd surely lose myself. And I love how that song is used throughout the game. Whenever you hear it, you think of Joel. And it's just a very emotional. Oh, also have to talk about Ecstasy by Crooked Still. I love that song so very much. And I love it when Ellie plays it on the guitar. And I kind of love that moment because it's like now she's already reflecting on what's gone between her and Dina. Like that is her and Dina's song, and she's already made her decision, and she's getting nostalgic about where they were before Joe died. Yeah. And I like is it called Little Sadie? Do 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 do. Yeah, that's a fun song. And the sound design here is so good. Like the clickers still sound great, but the whistles by the Seraphites, oh my goodness, whenever I hear those whistles, I get on edge. And I like how there is actually like a language there. Very well done. So yeah, I think we're getting to the end of this review. I do have a few other brief notes. I like how flipping through Ellie's journal tells you where she's at mentally, and it reveals information, and it's just really well handled throughout. I love how information is revealed. Like when I first played this game, I thought to myself, does Dina know about Ellie's immunity? And it becomes clear she doesn't, and then Ellie has to wear a mask, and you understand the kind of life Ellie has to live in order to trick people. I love how the wolves say, may your survival be long and may your death be swift. But when Abby goes to Ground Zero, she tells Noah, may your survival be long and may my death be swift, because she was expecting to die, but Noah actually gets tortured, and yeah, that's smartly written. I love how you use a map of Seattle throughout, but then you lose it after you kill Owen and Mel. Because like Ellie's going through so much there, she just kind of forgets about it. And then Abby finds that map to find them. It's so smart because it's like the game betrays you in that moment. I also like how if it weren't for Ellie going on her final revenge quest, Lev and Abby would have died. And weirdly enough, she actually did a lot of good, even if it was unintentional. Like, even the fact that Ellie didn't kill Abby, like, whole final revenge quest, even though it was done with bad intentions, she, like, actually did so much good there. That's interesting to think about. And what else? What else? What else? I love how Ellie kind of did a chemical burn on her bite mark and covered her arm in tattoos to hide it. I think we're getting to the end of this review. I really hope I did this game justice. It's kind of nerve-wracking talking about your favorite piece of media ever because you want to make sure you do it justice. I want to make sure people understand how much I love this game, and I'm thinking. Yeah, it's time to wrap this review up, which is still going to take me a couple minutes. But Last of Us Part 2 is the greatest work of art that ever exists and ever will exist. This game does everything for me. The characters have depth and you really do care for them, and it's just a heartbreaking story. It's depressing, it's bleak, but it feels true. This is a game all about how loss can break you. And I know before the game came out, Neil Druckmann said it's a game about hate, and I actually kind of disagree with him there. This is a game about love and what happens when you lose that love. And it's a game that makes you think about the relationships you have with people. It's a game about letting go and moving on. It's game about forgiveness, forgiving others, forgiving yourself. It's about accepting what is. It's a game about how we get caught up in groups and we become tribal and we start to view people less than human. It's about how we're all capable of good and bad actions. It's a game all about how sometimes we are our own worst enemy. The bottom line here is it's a game all about what it means to be human and what it means to love someone. That's the bottom line. This game encapsulates everything about the human condition in such a thoughtful, emotional way. And, I appreciate the bold risks this game takes, and I just care about these characters so much. It's challenging, it's fun, it looks beautiful. I love the atmosphere, I love the music. I don't have a single bad thing to say. Yeah. This game also carries over into my personal life because I always think about how cruel Ellie was to Joel before he died, and you never know when somebody is going to be gone. So this game makes me want to be a kinder, more forgiving person to the people in my life, because you never know what's going to happen next. And yeah, it really is a beautiful game, and I just love it so very much. So I'm giving The Last of Us Part 2 a 10 out of 10. I know this game was hated back on its release, but I feel like time has been kind to it. I do see people coming around to it, and that makes me very happy. It really is the epitome of art and storytelling, and once again, Ashley Johnson, Laura Bailey, Troy Baker's performances here are top notch. Everybody does great, but those are the three standouts. It's just, yeah. I need to end this review, but I just love talking about this game so very much. I apologize if I repeated myself. I do got notes, and I noticed I repeated myself on my notes, so hopefully it wasn't too bad, but have you played Last of Us Part 2? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe. Stay tuned for more videos soon. And Gavin out.